Well, today is a very historic day. We've been hearing about this, that Gary Roberts, the first Manx Chief Constable, is being sworn in. And I thought it was a good time to have another quick word with you, because we talked to you when you got the job. But here it is, you're now the Chief Constable. How's it feel?
Feels like it felt last week when I wasn't, really. It's no different. I mean, I've had an integral role in running the constabulary for years now, so it doesn't really feel any different. I'm sure it will do at some point when things are not great or when we're in the spot of bother, but at the moment it feels like I would expect it to.
Would it be fair to say that you've been sort of running the ship now for some time, because that's the normal process, I understand, isn't it? Once the chief is going to go, then you kind of take more responsibility. Or was that always the case that the deputy is in charge, really?
Yeah. When Mike Langdon arrived in 2005 as the deputy, he started running the constabulary on a day-to-day basis, and then when I took over, that was the position. So in terms of the day-to-day stuff, that's been my job for a number of years, more than 5 years. So the challenge for me actually is backing out of being involved in everything, which will be quite difficult, I think.
And the process of finding a replacement for you is about to begin, is it?
It's begun, and will come to a head sometime in February, I hope. And I'm really keen to have a deputy in place, because at the moment I'll have to do 2 jobs.
You come up through the ranks, and therefore you haven't worked anywhere else. And obviously you've satisfied everyone that it's okay, but do you feel you are missing any trick by not having that breadth of experience that other people have had in the job?
Sometimes I think so, and then sometimes I don't. One of the difficulties I've had throughout my career as a police officer, I think, is sometimes a momentary lack of confidence, which is about, hang on, I'm grounded here, I've been developed here, I've done lots of things here. And it's only when I'm exposed to things in the UK that I realise actually it's no different. The challenges are the same. Managing a small organisation is actually much more tricky than managing a very big one. And the very fact that I actually know this organisation and I know the community here better, I think, than any of my predecessors gives me an advantage. Where we've gone wrong in the past is picking up a big UK model and trying to insert it into the Isle of Man, and it hasn't worked. So I know the pitfalls, and I have around me a really rounded team of people who know exactly what they're doing. And the interesting thing is that I have a very positive relationship already with the Inspector of Constabulary, Stephen Otter, who's the Her Majesty's Inspector who covers the Isle of Man by invitation, is already offering me distant support and moral support, and I feel very relaxed and comfortable about that.
So you've got a sort of mentor, or whatever you call it, someone that you can go to a sounding board?
Yes, I have, and he's a very experienced Chief Constable, so that support and that guidance is there should I need it.
Well, I mean, trying to look back on the things you've done, you haven't really put your head above the parapet too often, although I know you're going to not like me for saying this. You did mention about 16-year-olds going into pubs, and that caused a furore, but it seems to have disappeared again. Do you still have the same view, and what was that view? Just remind us what you said.
The role of the deputy, to answer the first part of the question, is a background role. It's about making sure the finances are in order, making sure that the people things are in order, making sure that operationally things are being done that should be done. So that's why you don't see deputies very often. I did put my head above the parapet, and I talked about effectively socialising young people into alcohol. Young people at the moment too often drink in an uncontrolled fashion, they drink in a dangerous fashion, and they drink in a way that ultimately I think we will lose lives. Young people potentially could die because of their abuse of alcohol. What I talked about was finding ways of exposing them to safe and sensible drinking in a controlled environment earlier than is the case now.
It's gone away though.
It has gone away, but I think it's an idea that certainly at some point I think in the future will be looked at. Environments like public houses on the Isle of Man are generally safe. They're generally well run, and the trade here is generally very sensible. We have to teach young people how to drink. Having a prohibitive approach to drinking is going to fail. So we are daft if we think that young people are not going to drink when they reach the age of 18. They're drinking at 13 and 14. We've got to stop them doing that, but we've got to teach them as they get to 18 how to drink properly.
We've seen this ourselves. We've been down these parks where it's just a collection of young kids, clearly just teenagers, who are gathering and drinking whatever they can get hold of. I mean, because they'll say they've got nothing else to do.
Yes, and it becomes a game of cat and mouse where the police turn up and take the drink off them, or we move them onto another location. That's not beneficial to anyone. Young people can't drink when they're very young. It's really important that they understand the important health messages. But as they get towards 18, they really need to understand how to drink sociably, to drink carefully, and to drink sensibly. And sometimes we don't get that message across properly.
Politicians over here always seem to be passing or trying to pass lots of laws. The nanny state thing. I mean, we had that under Mr. Earnshaw when he was putting the criminal justice through, and it didn't make it. I mean, it did look quite severe, should we say, for restrictions on people's liberties. Then you've got Mr. Singh at the minute, who's trying to bring in some aspects of controlling where drink can be actually consumed. What's your views on that? Are you allowed a view on that?
It's a political matter, but the current situation is confusing for the public. There are some places where you can drink, some places where you can't drink. Local authorities have to opt into a scheme. What Mr. Singh is proposing, as I understand it, is for the whole of the island to be covered by the scheme, and then people will know very clearly that you can drink anywhere on the island if you drink sensibly. If you're not drinking sensibly and you're warned by a police constable that you're not drinking sensibly, then you can be stopped from drinking.
Do you think the pressure is on you, though, with so many of these sort of laws, and the Isle of Man does seem more restrictive, presumably, than some places in the UK? I
don't think the island's any different than the UK. I think the growth in lawmaking in the UK certainly came with the Labour government in 1997. They made dozens and dozens of new criminal laws. The Isle of Man hasn't kept pace with that at all. However, occasionally, we have to make new laws to keep pace with changes in the law. The law is interpreted and developed by the judges. So on the Isle of Man, the Deemsters interpret the law, and sometimes the law is found to be deficient, and Tynwald has to act when that's the case.
On the Isle of Man, drugs cases, for instance, much more severe sentencing, which keeps you obviously very busy, because it seems to be the cat and mouse game there also, that the fact is, because the sentencing is higher, the risk and the reward changes over here. People get a better price for their drugs being brought in here. Do you have any views on that? Do you think we should change things to be more in line with the UK as far as sentencing of those sort of offences?
Drug trafficking is an economic activity. It's a business. People are in it for the gains. They're in it for the financial rewards. And because we've been successful, the street price here is higher. It becomes more attractive, paradoxically, for people to become involved in it. Therefore, the risks should be commensurate with the rewards. So I'm perfectly comfortable with the way that things happen here, and I'm perfectly comfortable with the way the courts act. It's for them anyway. It's not for me to have an opinion about that. But I was interested to see fairly recently that someone who was bringing drugs here through the port of Heysham was caught by Lancashire police and got a sentence of about 18 months, I think. In the Isle of Man, they would have got several years for that same offence. Now, it's my view that the punishment on the Isle of Man is right, and it's my view that the public want it to be like that, and I think that's appropriate.
Because, I mean, as in the before the courts the other week, the muling thing's even going on. I mean, that's you think about that in bigger countries than the Isle of Man. It's worth people to actually ingest drugs to get them into the Isle of Man. Is that because you're being so successful? It's
partly because of that, but it's partly because organised crime syndicates in the northwest of England see the Isle of Man as a territory where they can make money, and that's why I talk a lot, and Mike Langdon, my predecessor, talked an awful lot about the need to look at serious and organised crime as well as delivering neighbourhood policing. And the biggest difficulty any Chief Constable has on the Isle of Man is providing a local service to deal with really low-level issues that bother people and damage their quality of life, but at the same time having a regard to what's happening in the UK, which is syndicates trying to bring drugs into the Isle of Man.
Well, we'll carry on this conversation in our next section.
Okay.